Okay, welcome. This is MPI Gulf States presents Coffee Connection. Today's topic is creative solutions for hotels, venues, and destinations to virtually showcase their properties and to connect with their clients. Today's hosts are Carol Benavidez. She's the Regional Vice President for HelmsBricsoe. We have host Katie Bohrer. She's the Vice President of Meeting, Design, and Experience for Associated Luxury Hotels International. And we have host Liz Irving. She's the Senior Vice President of Marketing for Clarion Events. And I'm your moderator, Bethany Lemanski, MPI Gulf States Vice President of Education. A few guidelines for today's Coffee Connection. This is a supportive forum for industry professionals to share insights and experiences. There is no judgment here. Feel free to open up about where you are in this uncertain time. We're a group to help you through these challenging times. We encourage you to ask questions. This helps us keep the conversation relevant. Please be open to share your personal experiences and ideas with the group. This is being recorded, so if you want to share today's discussion with others, we are happy to send you a link. And with that, I want to go ahead and we're going to do a quick poll. So if you all want to, I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. So the poll is, in what part of the industry do you work? Restaurant, hotelier, DMO, planner, vendor? Are you in convention services or other? And also, how many of you are a Gulf States member? I also, while you're filling out the poll, want to go ahead and let you know about other coffee connections we have coming up. Our next coffee connection will be on Thursday, August the 6th. And that coffee connection topic is You Are Not Alone, acknowledging the roller coaster of COVID anxiety and depression. Tools to help you cope to find the silver lining. That's something that's kind of really relevant in our industry right now with so much uncertainty. And I know personally I've had a lot of private conversations with people and just understanding that everyone is going through this and you are not alone. So we'll have a forum to discuss that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and go ahead and let you know who we have on the call. So we've got a nice mix of hoteliers. I think we've got, most are in the DMOs. We've got about 30% DMOs, 26% hoteliers, and then a little bit of everybody in here. And we are very happy to say we've got about 50% Gulf State members. So thank y'all so much for coming on board and participating today in our Coffee Connection. So I want to take a minute to talk to each of our individual hosts to give you a little bit of information about who they are and let them tell you what they've been doing over the past few months. We'll go ahead and start with Carol.
Hi, good morning. I'm Carol Benavidez. I'm a Regional Vice President of HelmsBricsoe. Been with HelmsBricsoe for 21 years. I am based outside of Dallas, Texas. And I'm also a past president of MPI of the DFW chapter 2008, 2009, so it's been a little while. But yeah, I still remember the Monday when my phone started blowing up, right? And it's still a process as we keep going through the months. We're going to the next month and the next month where we're either, especially the larger programs, where we're either canceling them or moving them to the next year. And so I know we'll talk a little bit about that more later, but you know, obviously all of them have been a little bit different. The hotels have been a little bit different, and just continuing to hope that this 2021 is a good year for us. Thank you.
I know we're all hoping the same thing. 2021, we're done with 2020.
That's right.
I want to introduce Katie. Katie, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and what your last 4 months have been like?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Katie Bohrer. I am the Vice President of Meeting Experience and Design for Associated Luxury Hotels International. A lot of us call us ALHI. So, my role is unique in that I started last year and my job was to oversee all the internal events for ALHI. So our organization is a global sales and marketing extension of over 300 luxury hotels, resorts, cruise lines. So we service both the hotel and kind of provider side and also the customer side. And I was over all of our events. My role has kind of changed in the last few months to help support our properties and our different partners through this time to kind of help them with adjusting and reimagining and doing business differently. And then also switching a lot of our internal events to virtual offerings. I do have my first face-to-face event coming up next month. And so I am working on that as well, which is really exciting, a small event that we're putting together. And obviously creating a meeting in this space is really different today. So following all of our guidelines and making sure we're creating a safe space. But that's sort of my world. And I'm based in Dallas as well with Carol. She and I also were both part of the MPI DFW chapter. I just moved here back from Nashville at Thanksgiving last year. So it's exciting to be here, but thanks for having me.
Yes, maybe we'll see you at WEC as well.
Yes, you will. You absolutely will. You'll
Probably
totally see
Dallas
me there.
folks there.
Yeah.
And I also want to introduce Liz Irving. Liz, tell us a little bit about what you do and how's your last 4 months been?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. So my name is Liz Irving. I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing for Clarion Events North America. So we are a large trade show organization. We've got 6 offices here in the US, and we run about 60 shows, knock on wood, when shows are running live across all different industries. So we run shows from 250 people to 34,000 people. So it all ranges the gamut. The last 4 months have been probably some of the fastest, most changing times in my 20+ career year in trade shows. But I'll tell you, it's been some of the most innovative thinking and collaboration I've seen across the industry. And I'm so excited to be here with you guys today to share more about what we're doing, but also learn from all of you how we can work together.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you all again for taking time out of your schedule to be a part of this as well too. And in our pre-conferences that I had with each of y'all, although this is focused on virtual, there were a few things that popped up within our conversations that seemed to still be needs that planners are having in communications or information that they are getting from their destinations, venues, hotels. And so I'd love to start by just finding out a little bit more about that, because really the whole point is to try to seal the deal. And if there's things outside of virtual that we can share with one another that can be done, this is the forum to do it. So Carol, what kind of things have you found that you'd like to see a bit more of that information that you could get from your vendors that would help you?
Yeah, so thank you. I have found that, a lot of the negotiation from 2020 to move to 2021 has been super successful, and, working through that. And some of the great news just in the last couple of weeks, I have a handful of RFPs that I'm working on, and the majority of them are for 2021. And so I found that I put out, it was 600 people for May, and then they decided to move it to October. So there wasn't a lot of availability in May. I found a little bit more in October, and I checked about 5 different cities. And so my suggestion would be is for any hoteliers, venues, or convention centers is to look at your need dates in 2021 and be sending those out to planners, because I think that will be helpful, because I think as we move along, we're going to have a hard time finding availability because people do want to rebook. And then also that 600 person meeting, what I suggested to them is to find a hotel that's a buyout. So whether, you with the social distancing, and I know Katie, you have guidelines that you put out with all your hotels, which is so great. So if you're looking at whatever capacity you can do as social distancing, if that number has changed, go after those type of groups. If, originally, if you could do 1,000 people, but now you can do 600, because then we have the flexibility. And like Liz said, to be creative and think of different ways that we can make sure that everyone's safe and we can move forward with whatever happens, a year from now.
Those are really good points. I also want to remind everyone, if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand under the participants. You can go to a little toggle that's raise your hand, or feel free to also activate the chat. If anyone has any questions, we'll be taking questions throughout this whole entire forum, so don't be shy. Liz, I want to reach out to you next and see what are the things that you're finding in your bookings that you feel might be missing, that you could have some plugins from them.
Yeah, I think as a whole, what we're really focused on today is what are your health and safety plans? What is your city doing? How are you open for business? Because right now, I could bring a show anywhere, but if my customers don't feel the security and the safety around them, that doesn't, they're not going to come and that doesn't matter to us. So the more you can do to showcase what you're doing, how you're doing it, what are creative ideas and how you approach things to give me more insight to share with my customers, I think that's a good place to start. I would also say, as Carol said, while I run huge trade shows, I'm also saying, how do I survive? So how do I also look at pivoting? So we've even gone as far as saying, are there niches within our large shows that could be a smaller hosted buyer event? So we're actively looking at how do we transform big shows into smaller community shows that can be held at hotels. So I think really just staying in contact with your event leads within each of the planning organizations is really key to just touch base and say, how are they doing? What's happening? And for me, really, again, health and safety is priority to understand.
Have you been, and health and safety, just to kind of give a broader spectrum on that, is that just health and safety within the venue or health and safety across the board for the city? And are you anticipating getting that information from the hotels?
Yeah, I am as a whole. So working together with the hotels, the convention centers, the city, is the city even open, right? Can we have events? There's been cities that obviously are not allowed to have events of certain sizes. But what I want to be able to do is say, okay, attendees, we've got you covered. When you arrive, here's what you can expect. When you're in the hotel, here's what you expect. When you come to the show, here's what we're doing to make you feel safe. I think the more we can not only say it, but showcase what it may look like, you get that sense of ease almost to make people say, okay, they've got things covered. I'm able to now attend to a show.
Awesome. I know that's really important to everybody. So I would like to move on to Katie. I know, Katie, you have got some specific information because I know you've recently done a site visit. You want to tell us a little bit about things you thought might be helpful in your site visits?
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of talk about both. So I've done an in-person site visit. I did it at the end of June, and then I've done a ton with our properties to do virtual. And, I think that we all are navigating this together, which is a kind of a cool time, I'll say, of like grace between the vendor, like planner relationship. Like one of the biggest things we talked about initially when all this started to happen was like the willingness to sort of not overproduce things, but to just start to show things to people. So for instance, like we had a property that they were one of our first properties to open, and they were going to show what it looked like to do social distance sets. And in the past, I think they would have spent a ton of time producing a video to be like, here's all these cool things that we're doing and make sure everything's pristine. But like we found that it's more about speed to market, and to Liz's point, like communication about what exactly it looks like so that we can rebook business and start getting that done quicker. So Carol even talked about FaceTiming, I think, like through a hotel experience, like people just want to see it. And one of the things we realized too is like a lot of us just sat in our houses for 3 months and hadn't even been out. So like seeing what the hotel actually looks like to have people checking in, like it's very hard to visualize that. So even if that's as like underproduced as someone's phone, at least you can see it. So I think that's a big piece of it for me, is to just kind of like own the like underproduction, but to say like, hey, here's what's going on at the hotel. At the in-person site visit, and I feel like we're like beating the same sort of drum of communication, but we as event planners, like bottom line, what we have to do is create a safe environment. And you look at like hierarchy of needs, and we have all these creative things we want to do, but if people don't feel safe or taken care of or considered, like none of that matters, right? So the ability to say exactly what to expect in the same way you would almost walk an employee through or an attendee through like their experience is for every touch point. So, for the site visit, you have to tell them, they want to know when I get in the car and I get picked up, do I put a mask on? Do I take the mask off? Like everybody wants this hand holding experience because every city is different and everybody's like news that's on the TV is different. So they really want to see, okay, and then when I get out, Do I take the mask off when I check in? Do I leave the mask on? Are you doing temperature checks? Do I have to sign a thing? Like, it literally is kind of spelling out what they can expect. And, you know, we're all used to being hand holders as event planners. Like, that's just what we do all the time. And so this is just that next level, I think, of the travel experience for everyone. So that's a little bit of what I would say. I mean, and I'm happy to expand on any of that, but this is like my whole world, so I can talk about it all day. So you tell me what else you want to talk about. So
I did think it was really interesting, just letting people know, like, the hours of the coffee shop, or within a hotel, or you know, am I going to be able to eat when I land? Is there are there any places open?
I think that's a huge thing, because every property is running different hours now because they have limited staff. The luxury experience is different now because we have a lot of our hotels where they're doing, you know, as little contact as possible. So in-room amenities are not possible. Daily housekeeping's not offered. So what is offered? And I was telling Bethany that I got there and, like, the coffee shop didn't open until 8. And then there was nobody at the front desk at that time that I came downstairs. So it was just like something really simple that we wouldn't really think about to explain. And then we had someone come in late and they didn't have food service that was available, like, at the hotel at that time. So I think it's just thinking that all the way through of what's different. But I think that's a big piece of it too, to just kind of have that understanding that all of our hotels are trying the best that they can, but they're also in new modes of hours and staffing. I mean, my director of sales and marketing at most of my hotels have done laundry shifts, have worked front desk shifts. One of them was doing pool and, like, towel and moving chairs around the pool. And I told him he looked really tan, and he was like, it's because I'm doing pool boy shifts, literally. So, you know, it's just, I think that we're in such a new environment that understanding that and asking those questions, but as vendors and as partners, that's what we need to explain and educate on, not as an excuse, but just to communicate what to expect.
So can I add to what you're saying? One of the things I think is going to be great is as events start to return and people start working together, I think the more you can also do to show and share what has happened and what you do different and better. I think we're all learning. We all want it to come back, but I think we're going to have to build and be ready to be dynamic, to change and evolve as we need to. But the more you guys become that partner and the voice to say, hey, we saw this. Here's what you should be thinking about. We're actually craving that to come from our partners.
I totally agree with that.
I can add to that a little bit too. I had a situation yesterday where it's a February, it's an awards program. They pick up about 300 rooms, and they were just wanting to ask the questions about social distancing and stuff. So we asked this hotel, you know, what are you doing? And I thought a creative way, just because it's about 300 people, that they'll take people in waves in the ballroom. I don't know if you've seen this, Katie, but they give them wristbands. And so the color wristbands are the timing for them to go into the ballroom and find their table and that type of thing. I thought that was really a cool idea.
Yeah, like for shifts for meals is a big thing, right? Because, and all of our hotels are having to figure out how, if they have a contract that was originally signed for 600, but now their capacities have greatly reduced, like, how do you still service that group? And the waves is a big thing. So,
yeah, I think we're all struggling with the day-to-day differences, and, you know, maybe that is even just updates consistently to clients, like, actually now we're at this level and this level, so that clients can actively be under the have the knowledge moving forward if they can or can't actually book, or what are those positive things coming out, and really showcasing the fact that you do care and that you are going to do everything you can to get that in-person meeting to your venue or your hotel or your city.
And I would add to that proactive communication is huge, because there is a lot of noise out there, and because every city and county is a little different. You know, like, if you as a partner are going to offer, you know, no attrition or reduce minimums through first quarter, like, communicate that so that people know, like, to come to you. And really what I feel like that says is just that you're open to those conversations, that you're going to be a partner through that. I feel like that's hugely important to be proactive in the communication about what's happening there.
Awesome. So spinning off on that, the virtual part of this, which is very new, and I know that there are some organizations that have gotten a little bit more advanced in virtual and some that aren't. So I'd like to start with Carol and just have you tell us a little bit about the virtual experiences that you've had from vendors as of now for post-COVID or during COVID?
Yeah, perfect. So I have two examples. One of them happened early on in March. I had a pretty large program in Barcelona. And so moving forward, I think this could help, with global programs too, or, across states or that type of thing. But the program was supposed to happen in March, and we were looking at rebooking it at that particular hotel, and they didn't have availability at that time. So we sent the search out, and we found a new hotel, and the hotel was closed in Barcelona. But in both, I'm going to tell you two different examples, but in both cases, the general manager was part of the FaceTime virtual tour of the hotel. And it was a little surreal because the hotel was completely closed, but it gave you such an idea of where they were placing the meeting space. They had a rooftop reception area. We were able to walk through on FaceTime exactly where the program would do. They were also very proactive, and they did a video prior to the FaceTime and sent it to us. Was a link of, they did a video outside the hotel and showed how close restaurants, bars, where they were located in the city. I mean, they did a really good job of really showcasing their hotel. And then the second one is I put out an RFP, and this for, I want to say it's October 2020, which I don't think it's going to happen, but still, this was such a great idea. This particular hotel in Orlando really wanted this program, and they did a video with the client's name on it, like, we want you here. The general manager, the sales manager was outside the hotel. They walked through the hotel again, showing guest rooms, showing where their meeting space would do, and then sent it to me as a link on YouTube. So I forwarded that to my client, who could touch that YouTube link and have a personal tour of the hotel.
Yeah, and I think we touched on this as well too, that is creating this very special moment which I think virtually can be challenging to offer
Right.
to a client, whereas in face-to-face site visits, you're able to have that connection. But how do you make somebody feel special and coming to your venue, your location? So personalizing it sounds like it must have made an impact. I'm curious, did they book, or did they end up booking it?
Both of them were for October 2020, and so I think they'll book in 2021, but they haven't done it yet. But the whole point is that, being creative and doing something different and personalizing it, like you said, I was really impressed by it, because the other hotels on that RFP didn't do that. So they really stood out.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions about that? I know there's some things happening in the chat, but we may follow up with those with Liz. But does anyone else have any specific questions? Nope. Okay, great. Thank you, Carol. Liz, what about you? I know you got a special email last Friday from a very special location in the United States.
I do. One of my favorite locations, actually. So New Orleans sent us a really nice newsletter that just gave us an update, not only on what they were doing in the convention center, but also the city, the restaurants, how the business was getting back in New Orleans, which I found really helpful. Again, I look to take those nuggets and be able to repurpose that to my customers, because part of being an event planner and doing trade shows is I'm also selling the experience of the city that we're going to. So the more I can do, the more information you can give me that I can share out, the better, just to showcase what's happening. Because someone had said it earlier, but you see the news in your area, you don't always quite know what's happening in other locations you may be traveling to. I will say, as a whole though, and I check with the rest of my team, in fairness, I run marketing, so I'm not day-to-day with the operations in the venues, but I check with my leadership team, and I did not hear a lot of positivity around what's unique and virtual and coming our way. So it could be an opportunity. I will tell you that I sit on the CISO planning committee for the summer board. So it's CISO, Society of Independent Show Organizers. We have a lot of roundtables just like this where we talk and share. So the more you can get involved with those planners and showcase, I think it's a great avenue, because every one of us, like you all, are talking to each other about what you're seeing, what you're finding. The other thing I will share with you is that we're also a part of a group called Go Live Together, which Freeman Decorating has put together this planning committee it's another great way to showcase what you've got. So if you've got really cool videos, if you can showcase the experience, we would love it. I think we're all planners are visual, tangible people. So it's good to have the conversations, but to your point, Katie, earlier, it's you want to see it. You want to see exactly what your customers will experience so you can be able to relay that experience to them to make them feel like they know what they're walking into.
That's great advice. And Terry, I know there were things that were popping up in the chat as well from Rebecca.
There's no questions, but Rebecca did give us a link of having all the safety and sanitation plans for each hotel and venues in New Orleans. So if you're not listed on there, she said go ahead and email her so she can be you can get property on there.
Wonderful. And I was actually just on the New Orleans & Co website. And one thing I did see that was virtually unique is that they are doing tours of places like our cemeteries and the convention center. And so actively on the New Orleans & Co website are these sort of virtual walkthroughs, which I thought was very unique as well too. So we want to see if anybody else has any other questions. And if not, then we are going to go move on to Katie. Katie has been doing a lot of things, I feel, for her multiple hotels. So Katie, do you want to start with just some of the things that you've done to try to virtually engage your clients?
Sure. Yeah. I'm kind of talking about some creative ideas outside of just kind of the, it is really important to offer what they're talking about, that face-to-face virtual tour and kind of site visit experience. But some of what we run into is like how we do the things that we're used to doing in person. So for instance, we're doing a program in November at a property and had a planning meeting, which is normally a multi-day event with our committee. It's 8 people. And so we had to switch that to virtually. And as we all know, like 2 days of a virtual meeting is not, going to be ideal. So some of the things that we did with the property that were really neat is we sent everybody a planning box. And I think you guys probably have seen some version of this, but a planning box that when they opened had different sessions that were like everything was wrapped, and then they had to open things during different sessions. So for instance, one said the 2:30 Zoom meeting, and then they opened that and it had something that engaged with that particular like meeting. If it was about catering, maybe it was like a snack. We sent rolls of toilet paper, which was hilarious, with like the logo of the hotel on it. So some of it was like fun stuff, and some of it was something to get them to engage, kind of tactily, like in their office at home with us on the virtual event. I think some of the other fun things we're doing is, we're just like inundated with stuff right now. And so wanting to set things apart, for instance, doing things that are more creative. We have a lot of people who are asking for things to engage with their kids on. And so we have properties that will host a virtual experience at their property. So they're showcasing a ballroom or maybe a restaurant or something that's a great view, but then we're hosting an experience that they can do virtually. So we're doing like a chalk artist with one of our hotels in Dallas that's going to teach some like cool ways to do chalk. Chalk is like so in this summer, like everybody has their kids out doing chalk, but she's actually going to teach how to do it with like different methods and styles. And then we're giving away a hotel stay to like the best chalk that's done with the family that sends it in. So like we're trying to create that engagement. We've done this. Sorry, go ahead.
Just a real quick clarification on that. So you've reached out to your planners, and the planners are invited to participate with their families in their home. And so within their home, they're having a full engagement with the hotel, so the whole family can be a part of that. Is that what I'm following?
Exactly. Yeah. And we send like a shopping list that's like, make sure that you have, chalk, and we send like kind of what their setup should be with their phone. And then, they all get to send pictures in, which like adds that then community connection there. And it's at a hotel. And so you still see the hotel, and you feel like that hotel is like personally connecting with you and your family. Another event we did was a floral decorating, and it was the same thing. We sent something for the kids. It was for 4th of July, and the kids could do a color sheet and then turned it into a flag. And then the adults did a floral like arrangement, and same thing, like we had a contest, they could send pictures in, they posted on social. And that one was really well received as well. That was from one of our properties. And I think too, something you and I talked about, Bethany, was like just letting your personality come through. Like as a salesperson, sometimes I think, especially initially, like we all stopped hard selling because you would be tone deaf if you were sending like just blanket sales emails, but you kind of had this opportunity to share like who you were. So we had one lady that started doing, one of our salespeople that started doing like quarantine files, and she would send like the picture of the week from her family, which was hilarious. Like it would be like her dog sleeping on top of her kid, or like what their living room looked like. And it was just a wreck. And they had all these different desk areas, which just like humanized her. Right. And that was like her reach out. And I think that we still are going to have that sort of coming out of this of like needing to have awareness of our humanness and sharing that we're in this together, and also starting to get back to business. But you know, like Bethany, you and I were joking, like you want to do business with people that you like. And so the way that you can share the things that are very lovable about yourself and very human, I think are a really cool piece of it.
Absolutely. I think that creating those friendships, if you have the opportunity to work with someone you like over someone you may not know, you're more likely to go with the person that you like, as we all know. And I think that during this time, trying to find how you can stand out and not just be a brand, but to be, like you said, humanizing the experience is, I feel, something that we're really lacking in. And that human connection, I feel, is hard to do. So like you said, getting creative. And, you know, I know a lot of people are under corporate brands, but maybe there is a way that you can still keep your corporate brand connected humanly to the people that that are part of your corporate brand as well too. Carol or Liz, have you had any connections or special experiences that have made you feel during this hard to connect time connected with anyone in your in your planning worlds?
So I can say from a tech side, just partnership wise, I think that just like you're saying, Katie, is we're all in this together and we understand everyone's business is about how we survive as a group. So I think the human side is important. I think the understanding of, gosh, we're all going through furloughs or layoffs or what have you. How do we help manage it together? One thing that we've done a lot about is just being really upfront and transparent with where we are in the planning stage. If an event is still on, knock on wood, for September, is it really going to happen? Like as soon as we know what's happening next, we're sharing that with our partners, even before we tell customers, because we want you guys to be able to rebook business or get ahead of what you need to for your business as well. So not as much unique pieces, but it's more about open dialect. And again, it's about building those relationships in connections, because if we have to, for example, we had to move a show in Florida in August. What we did is we're now backfilling with a new show we're launching as a small hosted buyer event in December. So we're trying to be good on both sides. And I think the partnership and the relationships go so much further today than they've ever gone before.
Absolutely. I'm going to throw this to Terry and see if are there any questions in the chat, or anyone has their hand raised to any questions we can cover?
Yeah, we have a question. So Tom wants to know that he read that with MPI, if you offer an in-person event, that you're required to offer virtual if this is requested.
I think I kind of understand what he's asking. If you don't mind, I can speak to this a little bit, because I was on an MPI webinar and they were talking about basically that because people are not comfortable traveling, they're doing WEC and they have to offer that fully virtually. I think that my answer would be like right now, yes, because a lot of companies, and I'll speak from just like openly, like anecdotally, what I'm hearing from our planners is they can't require their people to travel if they don't want to. So even if they are hosting an in-person, like it's got to have that hybrid element, because some people are just going to say, I'm not comfortable. So I don't know if that answers the question, but our planners are saying that even if it's a couple select sessions, even for the next few months, if they're offering something in person, they are feeling like they have to require or offer the virtual as well.
And then to kind of piggyback off that, he was like, how will this be enforced if they're requiring it, and who's going to police the virtual alternative? I don't know if there really is an option for that. I think that's kind of goodwill.
And I just, we have a small meeting happening in Destin right now where we just did a bit of decor for them and had asked them if they wanted to do any live sessions virtually. It's for family physicians. And so their conundrum was, if they offer the live sessions, it's going that for people that would normally be there, the sessions are happening during work hours. I believe it's up to the association or group to decide if they want to have a virtual element. what ended up happening with them is when the spike happened a week or two ago, they had to pull some of the doctors they needed to actually work within their offices. And so at the last minute, they did decide to offer a virtual hybrid meeting style, but it was not part of something that was required. It was something they decided to offer up, because you do want to keep in mind having a virtual element is costly. And at this point where I think budgets are very important, you have to also weigh the amount that you want to spend to reach those folks virtually. This was a very small meeting, 150 members. And so they originally had 90 and that moved to 50. So they thought that servicing 50% was going to be worthwhile. So there are benefits to doing hybrid, and there are benefits to obviously doing in person, but I believe it is up to the individual organization whether they want to invest in that virtual aspect or not.
Can I add just a little bit of what we've seen from a hybrid side in our world? So we're offering hybrid a number of our events if you can't come face to face, because we still have some really strong buyers who are telling us they have a need, but they can't travel or they don't have budget to travel. I will tell you from an organizer side, every time we've done virtual in some capacity, we're seeing double-digit attendee acquisition. So it becomes an amazing sales channel for you. So I think there are people who never considered my events before who now I have a relationship with. My goal now is to build it and continue it. But I think if you can afford it and it works part of your plan, you should offer it, because you don't know what you're going to turn over. I think today, any customer who shows interest in your destination or your hotel or your restaurant is a good customer to be able to connect with.
Mm-hmm. And that may be beneficial to the attendees on this call as well too, that taking into consideration for your hotel, if you do have in-house AV, maybe those are things that you're able to send cost pricing on, so that in the case that at the last minute they need to know that they can rely on services from the hotel or from the city or from the venue, that there is the option for a hybrid, or if it has to go completely virtual, they've got some assistance there as well too. Do we have anything else in the chat that we want to pull up? I'm seeing a few things. Does anyone else have any questions? Let's do another poll. I have one more poll for everyone. So let me go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and do another poll. If I can get the poll to come up for, did I not share the results? Oh, here we go. Sorry. Poll number 2. Well, let's see. I am not seeing that I can get the second poll up, but hold on one moment. Let me see if I can do this. These are all good. Well, I have another poll, but my poll was more to find out if any of our attendees have offered virtual in the past, or are you currently making any sort of virtual plans? And if so, what are you doing? What have you found that's you're working on in your business? And I know Terry and I had a bit of a conversation. It's kind of how we actually started this theme and this topic, was what they're actually doing in their hotel. So do you want to share a little bit about what y'all are doing to connect virtually with your clients?
I'm setting up, it's called Visiting Media, where you can set up like different 3D tours at the property. So it's still in a work in progress, where you're able to see like the guest rooms and the meeting space, just because I know in the world, people aren't really that comfortable with site visits and stuff. And it's an easy access that I can throw and go, hey, come look at my property. So it'll be the meeting space, the guest room. It'll like almost walk you through the whole property.
Okay, and I think Adrienne, I think she has a question as well too. Is there anything that hotels or venues are doing that are frustrating planners in the COVID world? As an industry, what can hotels and venues do better to help make the planner's life easier? Carol, do you want to take that one?
I was sitting here thinking about that. You know, it's not something that can be controlled, but I know that communication with rebookings can take some time just because of the reduced staff or reduced hours of working. So that's the only thing that I can think of offhand, that the timeline just seems to be taking a lot of time to have different decisions and having different conversations, but obviously you can't control that.
And anything from Katie or Liz, anything that you would like to speak directly to the industry, hotels, that anything that they can do better in their world to communicate?
So I agree with what Carol said. I think while we all understand the timeline, sometimes it's very hard to get back to customers and make that decision unless we hear from the hotel or venue. So anything we can do to sort of get things moving faster is always appreciative. I think the other thing on our side is really, you know, much more communication on what you are doing, what you are seeing, any cool things you're finding or learning that you could share with us. I think the more visualness you can share, I think the better. And we just want to stay in contact as much as possible and be good partners as we move. Something we've come across, and I think a lot of you probably come across too, is a lot of our contracts did not have the pandemic and disease included. So I think now, as we are re-looking at contracts, for me in particular, our legal team in the UK has looked at everything, so which slows it down. But I think thinking about your terms and conditions, thinking about flexibility, being upfront and open with what we can do is probably a really good place to be, because as we're moving events for cancellations, we are trying to backfill with other events where we could later in the year. So, you know, talking about your terms and conditions will be a big piece of how we decide where we'll go and where we'll take the business.
That's a good point. And I know, Carol, you and I had spoken a little bit about some of the things, if there's how hotels could help with percentage counts, if they're, say, you're at a 25% capacity or a 50% capacity for your meeting spaces. What are those numbers, or anything else that I think we chatted about that for a little bit?
Yeah, we did talk about it. I was telling you that I have, it's a resort outside of Austin, Texas, that it's a buyout program, and they go there every year, and they're rebooking for 2021. And just going through the contract, you know, asking that particular client, you know, of May of 2021, will you have a hybrid meeting or will you cancel? Because in some cases you can't have a hybrid meeting because it will not be a successful meeting doing it that way, right? So you kind of have two different choices. And in this one particular, they said that they would still have the meeting no matter what. But we had to come up with a clause because obviously it's a buyout, so you can't really do an attrition clause because they max out the property and they don't allow anyone else to come in. And obviously, you know, if the pandemic is still going on, we can look at force majeure. But what we ended up doing was coming up with a clause. And when we were talking about it, we were trying to come up with what would be the percentage. And the clause ended up being based on government regulations of what that hotel can accommodate. So the program is 500. They have no problem social distancing in ballroom space, and they kind of go by the guidelines of what is out there for restaurants. But if something changes and they can't accommodate this group, the group, if they can only do half, then that's what the group's going to be and what the hotel will charge them. So again, what Liz and Katie were both talking about, we just have to be flexible and kind of really think creatively. And with that particular one, we developed a clause that was mutually on both sides that made sense because we don't know what May 2021 is going to look like.
It seems really helpful and encouraging so that you don't have a full cancellation. And like you said, the flexibility, working with everyone, just open lines of communication more than anything else. Katie, I know that just in kind of going back to communicating with the people that perhaps in the past you might not have gotten their ear, I know recently you had some good advice on ideas on how to expand your reach out to clients. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. I had one follow-up thing to the time delay, because that we definitely are hearing that from the hotel side, and it truly is because most of the lead catchers and assistants and, you know, even CSMs and catering managers are furloughed. So one of the things, and this is going to sound really basic, that we suggested to our directors and may help you all, is to have an automated response that does tell, like, I received this email, you're going to get a response within this amount of time. And then also to have a reference point for this, the FAQs and those same questions that you're getting over and over, that maybe is a link to a Dropbox link where you have everything, or if it's a link to a website, or even, I guess, simple as a Word document that attaches that just says, we're getting asked what our capacity is, are we open? Like, just some of those things, like, do you require masks of hotels? So that proactive communication. So again, that might sound really basic, but honestly, I think that's a great thing to do if you are feeling overwhelmed, or if you know you don't have your team. Because it is funny, like, I have a DOSM who hasn't probably processed a full lead in like 15 years. And then all of a sudden it was like him, and he doesn't even know how to log into CVET when we talk to him. So I just, I know you guys all understand that, but it's kind of hysterical, like the things that we've had to relearn how to do ourselves. So I think what you're referencing, Bethany, was, I was just sharing that I think you can see a real positive of this as a salesperson, in that some of our busiest planners and busiest, like, people that we would go after to book our properties, all of a sudden have more time. And so we've seen a lot of our salespeople who are reaching out to, kind of, whatever you want to call it, the whales or the really difficult customers that they've always wanted to talk to. They're finally getting like a 15-minute Zoom catch up with them because they actually have time. And so I guess I was sharing that from the perspective of, like, not being afraid to reach out, especially if it's from a very genuine place to connect. Because those were the most successful reach outs we've had, was just like, just want to check in and hear how things are going with your events. What can we do as a resource? Like, what questions are you not hearing answers to that we can provide? And we're just seeing a ton of success for our sales team in getting those appointments with people that they haven't been able to reach in person in the past. So I think is that what you were referencing, Bethany, and just sort of our conversation? Yeah, because I think that there's a great opportunity here. We all have a little more time. I think we all are a little, maybe hopefully a little more kinder at this time, and wanting to connect. So
yeah, I think it's with the ability of having so much availability, might as well take advantage of it now, because it may not be, hopefully won't be like this for long. I'm just kind of going through a few of the other notes. I know in bookings in the past, I feel like there's a way that you can utilize testimonials. Do you find that those are more or less helpful now when you're looking to plan? And this can go to Carol or Liz.
So I'll say, having a little bit more time, I'm actually reaching out to more colleagues outside of my organization and talking to them about the experience, as opposed to a testimonial. Because honestly, I'd rather connect and hear how things are going with them and what they're doing and how the relationships they have with the hotels are working. So I'm doing that on a more frequent basis. So I think testimonials are nice as it's a sales tool, but I think, connecting with a real life customer of yours and sharing experiences is a really good thing to do as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our conversation when we were talking about testimonials is that there are groups that are happening, right? They're smaller ones. And it's like, if they're coming into your hotel or your venue, or, maybe not the convention center right now, they may be smaller, but sharing what were the pros and cons? What did you do right? What are we going to do different for the next group? So, I mean, like Katie was saying, she has a group coming up, in the next month or so, and she should be telling everybody, this is what the hotel did. Maybe we should do a little bit different for the next one, because the more that we can communicate that of groups that are happening and what we can do different or what we're doing great, we'll just get more group business out there and sooner.
I totally agree, Carol. And I think that's the biggest question we get asked anytime a lead comes through, is like, what groups has this hotel already done? What are they like? And I think we're a little afraid as an industry sometimes to be the trailblazer, to put it out there and say, here's what we did in case it didn't work. But that's where I kind of go back to my comment about, I think there's a better sense of grace and kindness, like, between the planner vendor relationship, to say, hey, we tried this, it did not work. Like, we thought we were going to do these stations and it did not work. The flow was like so weird. I think being able to share that is really healthy and helps us get back to how we figure out how to do meetings well. So I love that. And I think that that's really what hotels need to be talking about, is the learnings and also the successes.
Yeah, because I had heard there was a group or a hotel that was telling me about the successful meeting, and I thought buffets had gone away completely, right? That we weren't able to do that. But now they're having servers do the buffets to do a larger amount of people through those food stations. So it's different things like that that, is there plexiglass in certain places or,
Yeah.
the crowd control or, social distancing or whatever. But the more that the meetings that are happening that we can share what is going well will just really help our industry so much.
And I think that was something that that Alyssa touched on as well too, is that how organizations that may not have been in communication in the past are now much more willing to share information as more of a bonding between organizations rather than a competitiveness between organizations. I know that you've had experience in that as well too. So any other elaboration on the goodwill in the industry?
No, I think now's the time. Now's the time to share and learn. And, the more events we get going, the better for everybody. So I think it behooves us all to make sure we're learning and trying and really being innovative. I think a lot of times, at least the trade show industry is far behind every other industry. Now I'm seeing the most innovation and the most use of technology and big thinking that I've ever seen before. Like I say, it's really exciting. It's really exciting to see where we're going and how we'll get there. I would also share with you that, while we do shows in a lot of large cities, we're looking at second tier cities as well, because if it fits our geographic region where our customers are, we're open to where we can get back to business and where we can take customers. So I think also consider events maybe you didn't have in your city before. They may be open to new conversations. So again, reach out, have the connection, just do a check-in. It feels good. It feels good for all of us.
Yeah, and what I was going to say too is Katie kind of talked a little bit about what's the experience from start to finish. So it's also talking about the airlines experience.
Mm-hmm.
You read something about a meeting planner and they're like, everything's great, right? But you turn on the news and it's like, oh, nobody was wearing masks or people are in middle seats, don't fly. And so I think the more that we can communicate individually and turn off the news that might not be correct is helpful too.
I know that Katie actually had a great document that maybe you can put in the chat that your hotel put out that kind of is an overview of what your standards are, but also it reaches out to as far as transportation, Uber, Lyft. There's also information about what each of the airlines is doing as well too. If you'd be willing to share that.
Yeah, I can post it as a link. And really where that came from was we just felt the need to share information. And so it became this like massive project of just like send us all your information. And we just started pulling, that together in a way that you could review it. Carol, something I was going to ask you, I didn't know if you'd done this yet, but we're starting to see like a campus approach even within the same city. So when you talk about hotels or partners working together that maybe previously competed, like if everybody wanted to come to Dallas, we're seeing like a couple hotels having to work together to do, 100 here, 100 here, 100 here, and then to kind of broadcast sessions between them. And like we're seeing this cool campus approach where people who were previously competitors are being willing to sign a contract for multiple properties that are different brands, that are different, flags, which I think is really cool. So I don't know if you've seen that yet, but we're starting to do that with some of our hotels.
I have an associate that just put in a booking for, I think it's in August. And she was saying that they're doing multiple hotels in Dallas and the same thing. They're doing, she put it in very low because there's no attrition. They're not exactly sure how many people are going to show up for it. But I can't wait to see that being a success on how many rooms are picked up, and it's a collection of hotels doing it.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. I see it in the same city, and then we're also doing that regionally. So you'll have like something in the Northeast that connects with a property, and so they all host over the same dates, but it's to try to like minimize how many people in one space and then also the travel too. So I just posted that document in there, Bethany, so everybody can, it's just a link to a PDF document. And if you guys have any questions, you'll have my email after this too, but I'm happy to share any additional information.
Thank you. Terry, any other questions that we're getting in the chat, and any personal questions anyone else has? Please.
Yes. So Rebecca says, in addition to providing city updates and hotel venue information, is there anything that we can, as DMOs, can do to support planners right now?
Does anyone want to take that? I know there's been a lot of like communication on that. Does anyone else have anything to add specifically for DMOs?
I mean, I personally think all that information is great, right? Because as, you know, being in Texas, you know, we went through phases and then we went backwards, and, you know, and there's a lot of questions about what does that mean? And, you know, and so for every city, it's different. And, you know, in some places, you know, if you travel somewhere, you're going to have to quarantine for 14 days. So I can't think of anything else that, I mean, I think that's what's so important to us are those two items.
Okay. That's a good point. Terry, do you have I know there's a couple other things that are popping up in the chat. Do you want to present those?
Yeah, then I have another question. It says, as hoteliers were feeling pressure to make solicitation calls, are your clients open to receiving these phone calls, or when it comes across as insensitive and inappropriate for the time being?
So I'll take it. I'm going to take it from a side of what we're doing by selling booths. So we're in the same spot as the hoteliers. So do we sell the booth? Do we do the hard sell? And the answer is we haven't. We really talked about, we're here for you, what's going on. It's more of an exploratory conversation to check in and see how people are doing and what's coming up and what's top of mind for them. So I think if you take a similar approach, I know as an organizer, I'm really willing to take the time to have the conversation. I want to hear what's going on in your world. I want to hear what your clients are doing. And I'm open to explore more things and take more time. So I think pick up the phone, don't do the hard sell, but have the open conversation human to human.
All about relationship building right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think education, like our big coaching is like, people don't want to hear you sell your ballroom or your, you know, they're not looking for a sales pitch. Educate on what your hotel is doing and what it feels like to be there. That's such a better thing to talk about. And I think it's just so much more well received if you can help share information. That's, I think, like the most powerful thing that we're seeing right now.
So from the planner's point of view, if a hotelier called you and just said, would you like to take a quick 5-minute tour? I'd like to show you what it's like to come to our hotel, and, you know, or would you have any questions? Would that be something that you would feel would be insensitive, or would you feel like that's kind of what you're looking for?
So
I don't think that's the first conversation. Go ahead, Liz.
No, go ahead. I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, I just don't think that's the first conversation that you have with somebody unless you have a relationship already built with them. I think that at this time, it's going to be a little wasted if they don't have something. Maybe if you are trying to sell, maybe the questions are, when's your next open year? When are you going to start looking at space? So maybe it's not the first phone call, maybe it's the second phone call, a follow-up.
Wonderful. Terry, do we have any other questions?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. And I want to open it up. Does anyone else have any questions? We're coming about our full hour, and I do have a slide. A couple more slides I want to show you. But if anyone else has any questions, anything in the chat? I'm going to just show you a quick slide. We want to let you know that our Gulf States Education Networking webinar, the first one of our 2021 year, will be virtual. It's going to be on August 20th from 11:30 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. This one, I think, is worthwhile for anyone in the industry or perhaps furloughed, powering up your networking, LinkedIn, and beyond. Our host, Dawn Rasmussen, longtime MPI member and professional resume writer, will lead this session on the power of LinkedIn for building up your networking efforts. She'll provide meaty insights on how to update your profile and how to use LinkedIn to make connections, as well as alternate job directions for industry people at a loss of where to start. So that one will be, you'll get more information about that. And that is open to anyone, MPI member or not. We are trying to bridge the gap. And this is something I think that regardless of what industry you're in, this can be a helpful topic. And before everyone gets off, I want to also share our hosts for today's contact information, who have generously offered to personally answer any questions you might have if you want to reach out to them directly. This is how you can connect with Carol, Katie, and Liz. If anyone is interested in getting a link of today's recording, go ahead and shoot me an email. I can get you a link. It'll probably take me about a day to process this and then get it up on a server as well too. But we are hoping that if there were people that weren't able to make today's call, that we actually can offer that to them as well too. And I just want to see if there's any other things that our host would like to round out the call. Carol, do you have any last words or things you'd like to say?
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed having this conversation today. So thank you so much for having me. And, you know, like you said, here's our information. So if anybody else wants to have a conversation, happy to do so.
Wonderful. We're delighted personally from MPI and from all of us. We want to thank you all. Liz, do you have anything else that you'd like to wrap up?
I'll just say thanks, guys. I think it was a great conversation, and I cannot wait to get back to face-to-face events. So keep the conversations going, keep sharing. We're going to do it, and it's hopefully sooner rather than later.
Awesome. And Katie, any last words you'd like to wrap with?
Yeah, I echo the thank you. And I love how Liz kept talking about, you know, seeing great thinking and innovating, like looking at now the silver lining or the positives. I know you guys are doing a topic on that. Like it's so important to see like how we come out of this in a positive way. So to see it as an opportunity to innovate and do what we do better and to do it in a way that's even more meaningful is just what I would echo. So thank you guys so much for having us. It was awesome.
Thank you all so much. We really appreciate it for taking time out of your schedules and sharing your insight and experience with us. And thank you for the opportunity to follow up. I thank you from our chapter and from me personally. We really are all in this together. And I love that what has come of this is a connection more than a disconnect. I think once we're all able to hug, it's going to be the best hugs we've gotten.
Agree.
So thank you all. And we appreciate everyone for sticking around. Please let us know if you have any other questions in regards to MPI Gulf States directly. And we look forward to seeing you at our next Coffee Connection in 2 weeks and then our first education in 4 weeks. Thank you all so much. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Bye.